So I think I read Harry Potter, Hunger Games, Beautiful Creatures, then Divergent, then Percy Jackson. All right, y'all. My name is Morgan Hill, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm going to be talking about my all-time favorite books. I am actually copying this. I don't know if it's I don't think it's a tag, but this booktuber that I found, Diary of Fiction. I'm gonna have her name and picture and all that somewhere up here, and also in the description box. But I came across her video a couple days ago where she was talking about her favorite books of all time, and she put them in different categories, and I felt like this would help me out because I always get lost in the sauce of like, how do I talk about my favorite books without making this video an hour long? So anyways, we're going to go ahead and jump right in. So the categories, she had nostalgic faves, 6-star faves, recent faves, I'll always recommend, YA contemporary, and honorable mentions. So first category, nostalgic faves. We are going to talk about first none other than Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins. The Hunger Games series, Catching Fire specifically is that girl. And it's crazy because the movie is my favorite too. Like, the movie is Oscar worthy. Like, it was so well done. It was exactly how I pictured it. And I don't know, I just really liked that book. It really just packed a punch. Like, okay, the Hunger Games was cute and cool, but Catching Fire, like, we're about to turn up. So yeah, love that. Then Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Okay, we'll just put The Lightning Thief here. Percy Jackson was a series that I discovered around the same time as Harry Potter and Hunger Games, and I love the representation of a kid that has dyslexia and ADHD. Oh, also, I'm not giving a synopsis of these specifically nostalgic faves because you need to go read them. Honestly, probably for any of these, I'm not going to give a synopsis. You need to read these. But everyone knows what Percy Jackson is about, so I'm definitely not even going to explain it. But Percy Jackson and the Olympians has a huge stamp on my reading life. Next, I'm going fast because, like I said, I'm a yapper. Next, Beautiful Creatures. Beautiful Creatures, Twilight walks so Beautiful Creatures could run. It's basically like reverse Twilight, where the girl is like witchy or whatever and the guy is not, and it's in South Carolina, I think. They're in South Carolina, and you just find out things about the Deep South and witches and the Civil War, and like how all that's connected. I love history. History and English were my two favorite subjects in school. So I really love a historical fiction mixed with like a fantasy paranormal. And then throw an epic romance in there. Vampire Academy / Bloodlines. Okay. Not enough hype is surrounding Vampire Academy. I know there's a series, like I think it's a show now, Vampire Academy. Vampires that are at a boarding school and stuff hits the fan, okay? It's very, very cool. There's like vampires, and vampires have guardians. So our main character is actually a vampire guardian, where she's like half human, half vampire. And just a lot of different stuff ensues. I've actually read this series twice in my span of life. Mortal Instruments by Cassie Clare. Come on now. This is the OG, like the OG urban fantasy, the OG, like New York, like hello, like Mortal Instruments, even though it's not my favorite in the Shadowhunter world, it is, you can't deny her power. Like, you just can't. Like, you can't, there's no way you've been on BookTube or Book Talk or in the book world for 10 plus years and you have never heard of this series. It is so good. It's a must read. The first two books are kind of like, but by the third book, you will be hooked. And in the fourth book, oh yeah. And the fifth book, oh yeah. And I don't remember how many there are in the first series. Lastly, The Book Thief. Okay, I first read The Book Thief when I was in the 5th grade, and I thought it was good. Like, I thought it was okay. Then I reread it again in 10th grade with my English teacher, and she blew it out the water. Like, she really showed how powerful words are, and how even during wartime, this little girl was able to find comfort and solace in learning how to read. And at the end of the day, all we have are words and stories. archivists and librarians and people that keep the word safe and pass it down and pass down the secrets, like, are the most important people, because that's all we have to pass down. That's why reading is so important and pivotal, because without stories, we don't have a world. I mean, religion, we have, you know, whole religions that are based on books and stories and things. So, okay, next category we have our 6-star faves. There are very few books where I feel like this book wrecked my world and changed my life forever, where I'm thinking about it for years on end. Like, there are very few books. The 3 books on this list, we have Lady Midnight by Cassie Clare. You might disagree, and that's fine, but Lady Midnight totally wrecked my world. The blend of historic poetry, who was that? Percy Bysshe Shelley? There's like a famous poem, Annabel Lee, that's kind of like the center of the story. Like, something that Cassandra Clare started doing in her more recent books was really combining classic literature with whatever modern tale that she was telling. And I really appreciate that, because as a person who has studied literature and studied English a lot, I love literature. Obviously, Liv loves literature. It had a forbidden romance, and also like kind of like a murder mystery thing type going on. And those are my favorite. That's like my favorite combo. It's a very niche combo, and it doesn't happen all the time. But a forbidden romance, a forbidden best friends to lovers romance is crazy. And the whole trilogy is crazy. I can't tell you what it's about, because this series actually happens 5 years after the Mortal Instruments series. So if you read this trilogy before you read the Mortal Instruments series, you will be spoiled. It doesn't mean that you can't go back and read the Mortal Instruments, but I mean, you're going to be spoiled. But yeah, Lady Midnight, it was even from the title, like, and the cover. I remember I bought the book in Florida and I couldn't wait to read it, but I think I had to wait until I read The Infernal Devices by Cassandra Clare, because I didn't want to be spoiled. Just incredible. Next, Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. The Throne of Glass series, I honestly wish I could go back in time and vlog my experience reading the Throne of Glass series. That was one of the most incredible experiences I have ever had in my entire life. Yeah, it just is. Like, that's how you do a fantasy. That's how you do an epic fantasy. And I love that it's not necessarily like a romance. Like, I don't feel like it's a romantasy series, because the romance is not in the forefront. And for me to highly regard a series that high and the romance is not front and center, that means that the plot is just that good. And the plot is just that good. Like, Sarah J. Maas can do no wrong writing wise. And that's just that. Kingdom of Ash is actually is that the 7th book or 8th book? It's the last book in the Throne of Glass series, so I really legitimately can't talk to you about it. But it left an impact on me. It was also the longest book I've ever read, and I remember just being like shook. Okay, next, also by Sarah J. Maas, A Court of Mist and Fury. Do I need to say anything else? Like, I really don't feel like I need to say anything else. If you haven't read A Court of Thorns and Roses at this point, I don't know what you're doing. Because I read A Court of Thorns and Roses, I think 8 years ago at this point. And it was really popular back then. But it's even more popular right now because of Book Talk and kind of the renaissance of BookTube. And I'm just like, over these past 10 years, if you have not read it, I have no idea how you have not been spoiled already, because it's been incredibly popular. So yeah, I even reread it. I even reread ACOTAR and ACOMAF 5 years ago. So yeah, I read it for the first time 8 years ago and reread it 5 years ago. Like, that's how long it's been in my system, and it's still up there for me. Next category is recent faves. Okay, we cannot talk about recent faves without talking about my girl Jennifer Hartman. Okay, Jennifer Hartman, she recently released a book called Catch the Sun over the summer, and I saw it on Kindle Unlimited when I first got my Kindle, and I was like, what's this? The premise seemed like something I would like, and it was incredible. I cried, I laughed. it was just everything that I wanted in a book. Like, it resonated with me because of how the main character, it's funny because the main character actually loves Winnie the Pooh. But yeah, just, it had everything that I want: an emotional punch, a romantic punch. The main character, I felt like I know her. She bound books. She loved Winnie the Pooh. She loved the color orange. She loved like nature and horseback riding, and like, it was a very fall, it was a very summer transitioning to fall type book. And it's just gorgeously written. It's honestly her best written work. It makes sense because that's her most recent book. She's only getting better and better. But yeah, it's incredible. Another one by Jennifer Hartman is Aria, that I recently read and cannot stop talking about. I think this is her best story, maybe, but Catch the Sun is her best written book. Because I think Aria actually might be her first book. So look, her first book and her last book both being amazing reads, for me, is great news for her. But yeah, I talked enough about Aria in my October wrap up, so go look at that. But yeah, Jennifer Hartman, man. Jennifer Hartman, she's the one for me right now. Okay. Category is I'll always recommend. Okay, these are some books, really authors that I'll always recommend. Ashley Antoinette. I talked very briefly about Ashley Antoinette in my October wrap up. I read like 13 total books in February this year, and 12 of them were part of the same world, Ashley Antoinette. Ashley Antoinette, she is an urban fiction writer, and her stories are so captivating and so juicy, and I feel like I know these characters. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Her pen is crazy. And yeah, I feel like I know these characters. Like, I feel like they are, like, if I were to see them out in the street, I would immediately recognize them. Issa and Meek and Messiah and Morgan and Raven and Ethic. Like, I have a full yap session. It's like 30 minutes long. I have a full yap session talking about all of the books in the Ethic and Butterfly universe. But I don't know if I'm ever going to post it, because I don't know who's going to watch 30 minutes of me talking like a crazy person. But yeah, it's, if you like, and the books are short. Like, no book is past like 300 pages. So I would, you just fly through them. Just fly through them. It will have you mad. It will have you mad. It will have you sad. It'll have you geeked. It will have your jaw dropped. Like, if you've never read urban fiction, do it now. Next, Jennifer L. Armentrout. I will always recommend a good Jennifer L. Armentrout. Listen, it seems like if your name is Jennifer, you're just a good author. But I read her Lux series. I've read a couple of like YA standalones, some adult interconnected standalones. Last December, I saw these Jennifer L. Armentrout books in the bookstore that I had never seen before, and I was like, I must get my hands on these. And it was the Wait For You series. Wait For You, the book itself, is now one of my like all-time favorite books. It's a comfort book for me. So yeah, Jennifer L. Armentrout, y'all. She writes fantasy, she writes sci-fi, she writes romance. She does it all, okay? Next, we have Between the Lines by Jodi Picoult. This is actually a Broadway show now, which is really cool. But yeah, it's basically about a girl who loves this book so much. It's like a children's book that she finds in her library. She's trying to cope with something. I forgot like what's going on with her emotionally, but she's going through a rough time, and she finds comfort in reading this book. Well, one day she realized that the characters can hear her. You know, it's a little magical realism. The characters can hear her, and like she's talking back to the characters. Specifically, one is the prince. So they're kind of like a little bit falling in love with each other. I feel like it's really a love letter to book boyfriends. If you've ever felt like you're talking to the man in the book, like that's my book, that's my boo, that's my book boyfriend, then this is the book for you. I've read this book at least 4 times by now. I first discovered it in high school, and it's my go-to comfort book. Like it's my top go-to comfort book. Nobody that like, there's no death, no bad language, no spice. Like, it is so pure, so amazing. And yeah, I love everything about it. Like, it's so comforting. Next we have The Hate You, switching gears, we have The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This one is not a comfort novel, but it's an incredibly important story. It was one of the first books that I ever cried while reading, and it's just a good story. But besides the whole police brutality of it, because I know you know by now what The Hate You Give is about. It was turned into a movie, but anyways, besides the whole content about police brutality, it's also just like a love letter to Black culture and Black community, and also discusses interracial dating, and just like, it was like the first book full of Black people that I ever read. Like, it's a Black book. It's for Black people, but do read it if you are not Black. But I'm just saying, like, it's an amazing story, and very well written and very relatable. So yeah, The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. I have this book. I have 4 copies of this book. That's how much I love it. Next category, YA contemporary. So yeah, this is not like my favorite category, like, at all. Like, I honestly believed up until last December that I was not a romance reader. Like, I used to hate the romance category because I was just like, I don't want to read that. Like, I need the plot to have more stuff. Romance has been my most dominant genre this whole year. Like, I'm up to like 26 out of 90 something. How does that work out? Anyways, yeah, romance has been my most dominant genre this year. It can be really comforting, and it also can teach you about life. Like, I like when the characters are packing some sort of emotional baggage that they can learn to unload with each other, and it's very therapeutic, and it's very reminiscent of real life, because when you're in a relationship, you have to unpack, because you can't just be chilling there with your suitcase and there with their suitcase, and y'all just like, okay, well, who's gonna unpack first? Like, no, you both had to unpack. So that's why I love romance, because it can really teach you a lot. You can learn a lot about life from romance. Anyways, The Problem with Forever by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is another one of my comfort books. It was like the first book that really packed that emotional punch for it to be a YA. At least I'm pretty sure it is a YA. It really packed that emotional punch, and yeah. Funnily enough, this being one of my favorite books of all time, this main character also loves Winnie the Pooh. I did not wear this because of that, but it just so turns out that 2 books that I've mentioned already have Winnie the Pooh in common. So, but anyways, yeah, this 2 people who were once in foster care, they kind of get separated, and then later on they find each other and fall in love, and they both have emotional baggage, and it's just so well done. Like, it's just, it was the first, like, I've read many books that are similar to this at this point in time, but this was like the first. Next, Spells for Lost Things by Miss Jenna Evans Welch. I read this last month. It was the first book I read in September to like kick off spooky season. And I loved it. I absolutely ate it up. It was very touching. One of the characters was in foster care, kind of like in the last book, and the other character, her parents were divorced, and she kind of like didn't have a great relationship with either of them, I think. And so they're both just kind of lost. That's why it's called Spells for Lost Things. And then she figures out that her aunt who passed was actually a witch. So she goes up to Salem, and the other character, Mason, her name is Willow, his name is Mason, so I love the names. And it really resonated with me, because the first line was Willow talking about how like she feels like she needs to escape, and like she has wanderlust, and I was like, you know what, low key, I kind of want to enter my travel era. And yeah, and I read this like right after I had just taken my first plane ride last month, well, in September. So yeah, it was definitely the timing that I read it as well. It's not that it's not well written, but like it was emotional and a little bit romantic, but like cute and warm, and I definitely will read this again. next fall. Okay, next. Honorable mentions is the last category. We have the Shatter Me series. Every girly knows about the Shatter Me series, let's be so for real. It's like a dystopian type, and it was one of the first like series that I read where the main character switches love interest like halfway through the series. Now I've read a couple, not really a lot, but I've read like a few like that where it's kind of like, huh, like that's interesting, that because it's usually you meet the dude in the freaking second chapter and that's her dude for the whole series. But like in a Sarah J Maas, or just in some other type of series, I've noticed in my most recent years of reading that sometimes the first love interest is not your last, and I think that's a testament to real life. But yeah, it was the first one like that, and my first like enemies to lovers too, and I really I have finished the entire series. I don't know if it's still going or not, but yeah, it's just good, and it's a classic. Like you gotta read it. Next, the Gallagher Girls series. I have never seen this talked about on BookTube or Book Talk ever, but this is a true classic. If you know, you know. The Gallagher Girls, it's not like, oh my gosh, groundbreakingly well written and this and that, but for what it is amazing. Like a girl, she's a spy and she goes to a spy boarding school. That's really all you need to know. Of course, spy things ensue. There's mystery, there's romance, there's intrigue. So yeah. And yeah, y'all, thank you for listening. Thank you for going down memory lane with me. Nostalgic booktube vibes, and yeah. See y'all in my next video.